So let's say normal Dracotail is too boring for you. The combos, they just don't special summon enough. Let's say you're a combo player at heart and you just want to combo all over your opponent. So if that's the case, this is the video for you, because we're going to be covering Magistus Dracotail combos. So we're going to be adding negates, we're going to be adding interruptions, we're going to be adding floodgates onto our Dracotail end board. Hell yeah. But yeah, if you want to learn the normal, boring one-card Dracotail combos, you know, go check out my other Dracotail combo video. I made the branded Dracotail one. But if you want to, you know, combo all over your opponent, you're in the right spot. So we're gonna start with the highest ceiling combo in the deck, which is gonna be Faimena plus Spenta and any Dracotail name. It does not matter which Dracotail name you open. Could be Urgula, Pan, Lukias, Malulu, any of them. Doesn't matter as long as it's a Dracotail name. So first you're going to start with Faimena, and you're going to pitch Faimena, and you're going to fusion summon into Arphalion using Spenta plus the whatever Dracotail name you had in hand. And you're going to go into Arphalion. Arphalion is going to add back your Spenta, and you're also going to add back your Faimena because you fused with 2 monsters from hand. You can add 2 monsters back from grave, and then your Dracotail name is going to trigger to set a Dracotail spell trap. And you're going to set your K2. And then don't pop a card with Urgula, and then add back Spenta and Faimena. And now you're going to activate Spenta. So you're going to pitch Spenta, add Zeroa, and you're going to normal summon Zeroa, and you're going to do Magistus stuff now. So Zeroa is going to attach Artemis to itself. That's going to trigger Zeroa to special summon the Spenta from grave. And now Spenta plus Zeroa is going to make Savage. So now we officially have a negate on board. Isn't that awesome? And Borderlord Savage Dragon is going to equip the Artemis to it. And now you're going to use Artemis, and you're going to add Crowley to hand. And Crowley, because it's a poplar, when it's added to hand, you can special summon it. And you're going to use Crowley's effect to fusion summon. And you're going to fusion summon into Iwas, using Faimena plus itself. Now Iwas, right now, Iwas is just like an additional interruption. Basically, during the main phase, you can equip it to a face-up monster, and if you equip it to your opponent's monster, you get to take control of your opponent's monster. So basically, it's a quick play yoink, just an additional interruption on the end board. But the important part of doing that is that fusing for it triggers Faimena, and now Faimena can set your Rahu from deck. And now you're going to K2, and K2 is going to add your Lukias to hand. If you didn't start with Lukias, you would add Lukias to hand right now. If your Dracotail name that you've used up was Lukias, then it doesn't matter what you add. But yeah, we're gonna add Lukias. Just make sure you have access to Lukias somewhere in this during your searches. And then you're going to use Spenta effect, and you're gonna equip to the Savage Dragon the Zeroa that's engraved, and then you're gonna send your Artemis and your Zeroa into Doom Dragon. And for those wondering, yes, Savage Dragon still retains its negate. Even if the monster is no longer equipped to it, as long as it keeps its counter, it still has negate live. So yeah. And now you have a couple options. So you can be boring, and you can just link off Arphalion plus Snake Eyes Doom Dragon into seals. And then after you make seals, then you can go Rahu, fuse with the Lukias from hand, and then go to town with your Dracotail stuff. But let's say you don't want to be boring, and you want to extend this combo as far as you possibly can. So in order to do that, we're not gonna make seals with these two. What we're gonna make is a cross sheep, and make sure both cross sheep zones that it's pointing to are free. So yeah, we're gonna make cross sheep. And now that we link summon, now we can use Rahu, because remember, Rahu does fusion lock you for the rest of the turn. So make sure you do all your link and synchro plays first. And now you will use Rahu, and you're going to fuse into Gulamel using the Lukias and any other Dracotail name. Again, it doesn't matter which Dracotail name you send, so I'll just send a Pan for fun. and then special summon Gulamel to the Cross Sheep zone. And here, you're going to trigger a bunch of effects. So you're going to trigger Cross Sheep, you're going to trigger Arphalion, and you're going to trigger both your Dracotail names. So we're going to trigger Pan, and we're going to trigger Lukias. And we get to set both of our Dracotail traps now. So we get to set Flame, and we get to set Pan, or we get to set Horn with Pan. And then the Arphalion is going to special summon itself. And then the Cross Sheep is going to summon back the Lukias. Because if you remember, we have not summoned Lukias yet, so we can use Lukias effect on special summon to add a Dracotail monster to our hand. And we're going to add Malulu to our hand. And next we're going to use Urgula to add back our Faimena. Obviously, if you didn't start with Urgula, you would have sent Urgula with Rahu, but since we started with Urgula, we didn't have to send Urgula with the Rahu. But yeah, obviously you're going to use the Urgula to add back the Faimena. And now you're going to pass on this. So this is already a lot more interruptions than a normal Dracotail combo. You have the two Dracotail traps, the Horn and the Flame, but you also have a Savage Negate, and you have an Aiwa's Yoink, and you have the Gulamel Pop, and you have the Faimena Fuse. But it gets even better than that. So we're going to go to your opponent's turn, right? This isn't all, by the way. Okay, your opponent, wait for the main phase, and they do whatever. Okay, you're going to Foolish Spirit for Treeborn Fog, and now you can use your Faimena to Fusion Summon. You're going to Fusion Summon into Secretarion Dragon using Lukias plus the Arphalion. And you're going to Fusion Summon our Secretarion to the Cross Sheep zone. This will trigger Cross Sheep, and it's going to trigger your Lukias, so you can get an extra search off the Lukias as well. And then Lukias is going to set like another Rahu for follow-up. And the Cross Sheep is going to revive Crowley. You're going to special summon Crowley. And then Crowley, when special summon, you can use its effect on special summon. And you can Fusion Summon into Kaliga using the Malulu that you searched off Lukias last turn. And now you can make a Kaliga. And now this is your full end board. Okay, so we have a Savage Omni-Negate, we have Horn plus Flame, we have an Aiwa's Yoink, we have a Gulamel Pop, and most importantly, we have two different forms of floodgates on the field. We have an Invoke Kaliga, so your opponent can only activate one monster effect for the entire turn and only attack with one monster. And we have Secretarion Dragon, which makes your opponent unable to activate any Dragon or Spellcaster monsters. So if they're playing like a Dragon or Spellcaster deck, they're floodgated from the game. If they can't out the Kaliga, they're floodgated out the game. If they try to attack over the Kaliga, you can bounce their monster with Horn. They can't attack with any more monsters. They're floodgated out the game. And you're backed up by negates and a bunch of stuff. Like Aiwa's can also, again, yoink their monster. So yeah, this is if you really want to make Dracotail a degenerate toxic combo deck that ends on multiple floodgates and negates, here you are. I hope you're happy. So another important combo is when you open Spenta and Lukias together. And this combo is going to assume you have a random other monster in hand you can fuse with, such as Elemental Hero Neo's Royal Rare here. And yeah, so the thing is with Spenta is that ideally you want to normal summon Zoroa, right, when you open Spenta. But the problem with that is when you hard draw Lukias, you also want to normal summon Lukias. So what do you do in this scenario when you open both of these? So it's going to be a little bit different, but we're going to start with normal summon Lukias first, and not Spenta. So we're going to Lukias, and we're going to add Faimena to hand, and we're going to assume that like these other two Dracotail spell traps in our hand, these are blanks. So yeah, we add Faimena, and then we're going to use Spenta. And Spenta, we can't add Zoroa right now because obviously if you add Zoroa, like we can't normal summon it, so it doesn't do anything. So we have to add Crowley first with Spenta, and then you're going to trigger Crowley, and you're going to special summon Crowley, and you're going to use Crowley's effective fusion summon, and you're going to fusion summon into Aiwa's, the Magistus Fusion, and you're going to use Lukias on field. Do not use the Faimena in hand. Use the Lukias on field plus the Crowley. And you're going to make your Iwas. And that's going to trigger your Lukias. And Lukias is going to set your K2. Next, you're going to use Spenta to equip to the Iwas your Artemis from the extra deck. And now Artemis is equipped, you can use Artemis and you're going to add Zorua to hand. Now the Zorua, you might be wondering how are we going to use this Zorua? So that's quite simple actually. So K2 Dracotail is now going to add you your Malulu to hand. Specifically, it has to be Malulu. Why? Because now that you have both Zorua and Malulu in hand, you're going to use Faimena's effect to fusion summon, and you're going to fuse not into Arphalion. Do not fuse into Arphalion. You're going to fuse into Secretarion Dragon using Malulu and Zorua because they are a spellcaster and a dragon. And you're going to special summon Secretarion Dragon, and then that's going to trigger Malulu, and Malulu is going to set a Rahu from deck. And now Secretarion Dragon, you all know it's a floodgate. It also has another effect where you can target a dragon and a spellcaster monster in your graveyard and special summon one and place the other at the bottom of your deck. So what are a spellcaster and dragon monster in our graveyard? We're going to use Secretarion Dragon, and we're going to target Zorua, and we're going to target Malulu. And now we're going to special summon Zorua and put the Malulu back in deck. And this is how you access Zorua when you open Lukias as a normal summon still. You can still get to Zorua this way without normal summoning it because of a Secretarion Dragon right here. And now that you have Zorua on the field, you can target Zorua, equip the Zorua fusion from your extra deck to it, and then this will trigger Zorua to special summon back your, doesn't matter which one, so you can summon back Lukias or Crowley. So I will summon back Lukias, and then you have two choices. So here, you can decide on your end board between keeping Secretarion Dragon on the field or between making a Savage. So if you want to keep Secretarion Dragon on the field as a floodgate, then you would link off the Lukias or the Zorua into a Spirit, and you would summon your Doom Dragon. Okay, so first we'll summon Doom Dragon. So we'll summon Doom Dragon, and if you want to keep your Secretarion Dragon on the field, you will link off Zorua into Spirit, and then Spirit plus Snake Eyes Doom Dragon goes into Seals, and then you can activate your Rahu, do all that stuff, and then you can keep your Secretarion Dragon on the field. That's a floodgate. If you want to make a Savage instead, then you will have to link off the Secretarion Dragon. But so let's say if you want to make a Savage instead, I will show you the Savage trails. Just know that if you want to keep Secretarion Dragon on the field, you would use Zorua to make the Seals instead. But if you want to make a Savage, you link off the Secretarion Dragon plus the Snake Eyes Doom Dragon into Seals. And then you can then synchro off the Zorua plus the Lukias into a Savage Dragon, because Zorua is a level 4 tuner. And then Savage Dragon can equip the Artemis. And now that you've done you've summoned your Seals and your Savage, now you're free to Rahu Dracotail. And you're gonna Rahu away this Niels in your hands. Get Rahu, fuse away your Elemental Hero Niels Royal and your Urgula from deck into Arphalion. And then that's going to trigger your Arphalion to add back your Faimena, and it's going to trigger your Urgula to set one of your Dracotail traps. So we'll set Horn, and then Arphalion, add back our Artemis, our Faimena, sorry, and then use Urgula, and we can add back the Lukias. So this is the end board that you get with Spenta plus Lukias. And the thing is with this combo is that you only get one Dracotail trap, so it's either Horn or Flame. You can't get both unless you hard opened another Dracotail monster. But I mean, I think it's quite worth it to only have one trap, but also to have Seal plus Savage plus Iwas as well, plus the Faimena fusion. So you still have a bounce with Seals, which then the Seals will summon the Malulu from your deck, and then Malulu can make another fusion. One negate from Savage, a Yoink with the Iwas, and one Dracotail spell trap, and the Faimena fusion still. So, like for example, if our opponent does anything, we can okay, so I'm just waiting for them to do something. Okay, they can summon a monster. We can yoink the monster with Iwas by equipping it to their monster, or we can, for example, use a Seals, the tribute itself, which will bounce their card, and then Seals will summon a Malulu from deck. The Malulu that we, funnily enough, just shuffle it back with the Secretariat Dragon. Then it will summon Malulu, and then you can use Malulu to further fusion summon into a, for example, we can Malulu and fuse into Arphalion or a Gulamel. So with this hand, you would have to make Arphalion first, because I don't have another monster. If I had another monster, you can make Gulamel and then trigger Gulamel with the Faimena and fusion summon again. But since we don't have an extra monster, we actually have to go Arphalion. So I'll use using Arphalion and Lukias. That way, we can add another monster back to our hand, and then set another spell trap, and we'll set another Rahu, and then add another monster back to our hand, so then we can fuse with the Faimena as well. We can use Faimena to fuse with the Crowley and the Malulu into a Gulamel using Malulu and Crowley. And then you have the Gulamel set up. And you can summon back Arphalion if you want. Not necessary, but now you can pop a card if you trigger Dracotail Horn as well. You also, we also have the Savage Dragon negate and the Iwas, and you get a lot from that combo. Even it's not as ideal as opening like Spenta plus Faimena, but Spenta plus Lukias, as you can see, it's still a ridiculous combo. You still get a lot from it. So now here's the really boring combo. If you don't open Spenta, there is still a way to bridge your Dracotail cards into the Magistus cards. There's like a few different ways depending on which Dracotail cards you draw, but the easiest and simplest way that uses the least amount of cards is just Lukias plus Rahu. So this is a combo that's very similar to what you might have seen in the TCG, because the TCG they didn't have Spenta for the longest time. So you technically don't need Spenta for this combo, but yeah, so you're gonna normal summon your Lukias, and Lukias is gonna add your Faimena, obviously, and then you're going to link your Lukias into Artemis before you use your Rahu, because Rahu, it does fusion lock you for the rest of the turn, so you want to make your link monster first before you firing off Rahu, and then you're gonna use Rahu, and you're gonna make Arphalion, sending the Faimena and your Urgula. And then that's going to trigger both your Faimena and your Urgula and your Arphalion. So Arphalion is going to add back the Faimena, and then you're going to trigger Faimena, and you're also going to trigger your Urgula. And you're going to set your K2 and set one of your Dracotail traps right now, and then the Arphalion is going to add the Faimena back to hand, and now you're going to use Faimena to fusion summon into Zoroa the Magistus Verifragna. Yes, you will hard fuse into Verifragna right now, and Verifragna can equip a monster from your graveyard to it, so we're going to equip the Artemis to it, And now we have the Artemis equipped to it. We're going to add K2 to our hand. K2 is going to add us our Malulu. Specifically, very important, this has to be Malulu. And we're going to use Urgula. Just remember to do this early, but Urgula is going to add back our Faimena to hand. And then you're going to use Artemis, and Artemis is going to add your Spenta to hand. You don't have to add Spenta here. Like, this is why this is a combo that you don't need to use Spenta for, because all Spenta is going to do is you're going to discard it to add your Crowley instead. And then you're going to special summon the Crowley. And you're going to use Crowley to fusion summon into your invoked Kaliga using itself plus the Malulu that you added off the K2. And then you're going to use Malulu. Very, very important. Very important. Please use Malulu's effect, okay? And Malulu is going to set your other Dracotail trap. Because Kaliga limits you to only using one monster effect per turn, you have to use Malulu first. If you had tried to revive our Valiant with its own effect, that would have been your one monster effect, and you would have been shut off from setting another card with Malulu, which is that would have been really bad. You don't want that. So yeah, make sure you use Malulu first. Also, make sure you use Urgula to add back the Faimena before you make the Kaliga, because that's also a monster effect. But yeah, this is the end board now. It doesn't have the crazy, it doesn't have the Savage Dragon or any of the crazy stuff on field or the Iwasp or stuff like that. This is just bread and butter, Zoroa fusion plus Kaliga. But also, I mean, this is like pretty much like very difficult to play through, because Kaliga limits your opponent to only using one monster effect per turn. And what does Zoroa do? Zoroa, when a monster effect is activated, you can negate that effect. So, very importantly, Zoroa does not negate activations. It negates effects. Because it negates effects, your opponent's one monster effect that they're allowed to use, you can negate it, and then they can no longer use any more monster effects. If it negated activations, they could use another effect. But because Zoroa does not negate activations, it negates effects. Zoroa plus Invoke Kaliga basically locks your opponent out of using any monster effects, pretty much for their whole turn. So unless they have like a spell and trap out to out the Kaliga, then they're probably not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And even if they had a spell out, you also have a spell negate with Dracotail Flame as well. So yeah, this is kind of evil. It's a little more boring than the previous combo because it's just Floodgate Turbo. There's none of the other combo stuff that you do, but like, look, it's a very strong Floodgate. It's definitely worth knowing. So yeah. So what do you do when you only open Spenta and no actual Dracotail cards? So there technically is a bridge you can do using the invoked Omega Fusion to bridge into your Dracotail monsters. I don't think that's personally worth it. A lot of people don't think that's worth it. Even like every OCG deck list, none of them run the Magistus Bridge into Dracotail because it's actually just not that good. And frankly, you don't need to do that. If you just use your Spenta, it's still fine. You don't have to access your Dracotail cards this exact turn to still be in a very good position. So we're gonna use Spenta, and we're gonna use Spenta to add Zoroa. Like this is pretty obvious. We're gonna normal summon Zoroa. And then, Zoroa is going to equip the Artemis, and then that's going to trigger Zoroa to summon back the Spenta. Then we can Synchro into Savage Dragon, and then Savage will equip the Artemis, and then Artemis will add us our Crowley, and then you special summon Crowley. And don't use its effect to fusion summon. You're gonna then Spenta equip the Savage, the Zoroa in graveyard. I mean, this is like pretty obvious. Like you probably see where this is going. You're gonna send these two for Doom Dragon. Then you're gonna make Spirit, and then you're gonna make Seals. And that's what you do with one. With just one Spenta and like no Dragotail cards, you end on Seal's Savage Pass. So we're literally playing 2019 Dragon Link over here. But yeah, if your hand is just Spenta and no Dragotail, no other Dragotail cards, that means you probably have like 3 to 4 hand traps in hand. Or in our case, we have a copy of a Royal Rare Dark Magician, which is, arguably even better than another hand trap. But yeah, this is still fun. This is like still a windmill game because 3 hand traps plus a negate plus seals is, that's solid for like a 1-card combo. Like it's not the end of the world if you have to do this. Not to mention, you do have access to your Dragotail engine, just not on your turn, but you do have access to it on your opponent's turn. So let's say your opponent does anything, and like we'll just wait for them to put up a card that we can bounce with seals. And it's a interesting card right there. Okay, I'm just waiting for a card I can bounce with seals. So for example, let's say they summon anything, we can use seals, tribute itself, and then we can bounce a card back to our opponent's hand, and then the seals will summon out the Malulu from deck. And now the Malulu can fusion summon into our Dragotail engine. For example, now we can use Dragotail Malulu, and now we can fuse with this trusty Dark Magician in our hand into our Phalion. Our Phalion can bounce one of our opponent's cards. If it doesn't want to bounce on our opponent's cards, we can add the Malulu back to hand as well. It's not a big deal. You can also add the Crowley or the Zoroa back to hand too. Or if you use the hand trap before, you can add a hand trap back to hand as well, such as Valor. If we Valor the opponent's monster, you can deal a Phalion, add back the Valor. But let's just say we add back Malulu to our hand. We can also trigger Malulu to set a Dragotail spell trap. So we can set, for example, K2 for follow up on the next turn, and then we have the Malulu back in our hand, and now we have full Dragotail engine guaranteed on turn 3, because the seals will get to Malulu, and then a Malulu can fuse on your opponent's turn into our Phalion to then be able to set any Dragotail spell trap such as K2, so that we can have Dragotail engine on turn 3. And it's really hard for our opponent to still kill us, even through Seal Savage, because Seal Savage is still 2 interruptions on the gate and a bounce, plus whatever hand traps we have in hand, plus our Phalion that they will have to deal with once we fuse with the Malulu. So this is still fine. Like, you don't have to run any fancy like janky bridges into Dragotail with the Magistus stuff. Just make Seals and Savage, and that's good enough. So yeah. Now I'll show you like an example deck list of Magistus Dracotail. So this is what an example Dracotail Magistus deck list looks like. And for the most part, the deck composition is pretty straightforward. You just take a normal Dracotail core, and then you add like 5 Magistus cards to it. So you're adding Zoroa, triple Spenta, and Crowley to it. And that's basically it. So as you can see, this deck still has plenty of room for hand traps. Even with the bigger Magistus engine, the slightly bigger Magistus engine, you still have basically 17 hand traps, like 3, 3, 3, 3 ghost, 2 ghost spell, 1 droll and Lockbird. The droll is just because we are playing Crossout in this list, because this deck, this variant of the deck compared to like the normal pure Dragotail or brand Dragotail cares more about Maxi and Fuwa than those variants. So we're playing a couple more Maxi and Fuwa outs, and of course, the Dragotail Faimena itself is also basically a hand trap, so you would basically have like 17 hand traps in this deck list still, including Faimena. So I mean, that's still perfectly fine. And yeah, so like the advantage of this deck, obviously, besides the higher ceiling, is that this deck plays better into like the 1/4 hand traps. It depends on what you want to try to beat, right? Because the normal pure or branded Dragotail deck lists, they have lower ceiling, but they are much better into stuff like Maxi and Droll, but they can also be hurt more by more 1/4 hand traps, like Ash, for example. Like Ash on a Rahu, for example, is a pretty big deal in those other versions. Whereas in the Magistus version, if you open Spenta, they kind of have to Ash the Spenta, right? If they don't Ash the Spenta, they're going to be putting up a Savage Dragon on board, and then the Ash is not going to do anything anyway. So like, same with like stuff like Valor. If you normal summon the Zoroa, I mean, you kind of got a Valor to the Zoroa, right? The Zoroa gives you too much advantage. It gives you a Search and a Body and a Savage. So they have to burn their hand traps on your Magistus cards, the 1-for-1 hand traps, and then you still haven't even used your Dracotail card. So like this, the Magistus deck list is like better into the 1-for-1 fair hand traps compared to the Floodgate turn skip hand traps like Maxi and Mo Charming Fool Loss. But on top of that, this end board is just way stronger. If you play normal Dracotail mirrors, you have to, play an intricate grind game and, try to outplay your opponent and all that stuff. If you do the end board with Magistus Dracotail, you don't gotta outplay your opponent for crap. You can literally just auto win the game if it resolves it, and you do your end board, and then it's like you don't gotta think. Like it's just over. So yeah, having an auto win matchup, whereas this is the mirror match is often grindy, having an auto win option, is something to think about. But yeah, so the deck list itself, it's very straightforward. So like we're playing for the Draco's Tail stuff: 3 Malulu, 3 Lukias, 3 Faimena, 3 Dracotail, 3 K2, 3 Rahu. Only 2 traps because this isn't a pure build, so you don't really need to add another brick as a third trap. Your end board's strong enough with there's no engine already, and also only 1 Urgla and 1 Pan because I mean, you can run more names if you want. They do help you with comboing sometimes, but you have other combo starters now with Spenta, so you can cut these down to one each, and then like just having 2 of the 3 traps. And then the Magistus engine is just 3 Spenta, 1 Zoroa, and 1 Crowley. And Crowley is, funnily enough, not as much of a brick in this list compared to other Magistus decks or other decks that play the Magistus engine, because this is a fusion deck. And Crowley you can literally just normal summon Crowley and then fuse with one of your Dracotail names in hand, and then you get your combo, your engine going that way. So like if you open like Crowley plus basically any Dracotail name, you can try to fuse into something. Like if you open like Faimena, for example, plus Crowley, but no other Dracotail names, like you normally can't make a Dracotail fusion, but you can normal summon the Crowley fuse with the Faimena, and then you can make like an Iwas, and then trigger the Faimena that way, and then the Faimena can set the Rahu or set K2, and then you can actually like start playing from there. So it's I mean, obviously it's not ideal to draw Crowley, but it's not like completely dead if you draw it compared to like how it normally is in a bunch of other Magistus decks. But yeah, that's for the main deck. The extra deck is like very tight. I don't think there's one flex spot, which is the one flex spot is SP, because SP is the one card that's not needed in any combo pretty much. So you can run whatever you want over the SP, but you need the Kaliga, you need the Glumel, you need the Iwas, you need the Doom Dragon, you need the Zoroa fusion, you need 3 Arthalion. The Secretarian Dragon is not just a Floodgate in this deck, it is also part of a combo. You have the Borderlord Savage Dragon, Artemis, 1 Spirit, a Seals, and a Crossjeep. But I think all 14 of these extra deck cards are somewhat needed, so yeah, the only flex slot is the SP. But yeah, if you saw this entire video and you're not too interested in the Magistus version, well, first of all, thank you for watching. But if you're interested in the other version of this deck, the more low to the ground mid-range version, Branded Dracotail, go check out the Branded Dracotail combo video I made as well, if you're interested in that. But yeah, thank you for watching.